Welcome to Sewing with Tay. I'm Fantasia of the Aya Emporium, and today we are hand knitting because 'tis the season for cold weather. So today we're going to be doing a hand knit hat. I'm still working through the kinks. This is my second or third time doing this, and I kind of like this one so far. So I made another tutorial, and as you guys might have seen on my shorts, literally like it turned into like a strawberry shortcake head. This one I like a little bit better. It's still puffy. I feel like it's always going to be puffy like this, and I put a bonnet inside of it to protect my hair. So we're gonna go through the steps on how to make one of these bad boys so that you can make one too. I made one to match my cardigan that I made, so if you want to get you a matching set too, stay tuned to watch the video. So the materials that we're going to need to make our chunky yarn hand knit hat: you're going to need one skein of yarn. This is an 8-ounce skein. This one came from Hobby Lobby. You're going to look for the jumbo number 7 or like 25 millimeter if you're looking in the little box. Like here, the little box, look for 25 millimeters. This is jumbo number 7 right there. This is 8 ounces, 28 yards. I still had yarn left over after using one of these, but you can also buy yarn at Michael's, Amazon. There's a few like niche brands like Be Cozy. I have a link in my bio, or a link in my description, for where you can buy yarn at. All you're gonna need is one of these, pair of scissors, and I put a satin lining in this. So if you also want a satin lining in your hat, then you will just need a needle and some thread. So let's jump right into the tutorial. So here we have our skein. We have one skein of yarn B from Hobby Lobby. It's Eternal Bliss in the color navy. We're going to take the paper off, and then you're going to check both ends of your skein to find the tail of your yarn. It'll be tucked into one of the sides, and it should pull out relatively easy. If you're struggling to pull it out, then that's probably not the right end of the yarn, and you don't want to mess it up. So we're going to roll some out so that we can get started. The first thing that we are going to do is make a slip knot. So we're going to twist our yarn, and then we're going to pull it through. I'm going to do a repeat because that was pretty fast. So we're going to pick up our yarn, and then we're going to make a twist. So I picked it up, and I'm going to twist it. Then I'm going to lay that twist on top of the working yarn and pull it through. The short end of the yarn is our tail. The part of the yarn that's connected to the ball is the working yarn. So you put your thumb and index finger inside the loop, and you're going to pull the working yarn through using your index and thumb, pulling it through that loop. So you keep going. You want your loops to be 2 to 3 fingers wide, and we're going to do this for about 12 to 15 loops depending on how big your head is. I kind of gave my head a quick measure, and it was like 21, so I ended up just taking out my measuring tape and measuring it because this is going to vary depending on how big your loops are. So I had to do a couple more here, but now we're ready to continue. So next step is to make a circle. We're going to take that tail and we're going to tuck it into the loop, but not the standing loop, not that last loop, the loop that it's underneath it. So you see there, we have the loop coming up and the loop that's around it. You want to put the tail through the loop that's around your last loop. So you're going to tuck it in there, and then we're going to take our working yarn and we're going to pull it up through the spaces on the top of our chain. So on your chain, you'll have a space at the top and bottom. So you see here, I'm going in that top row, and we're going to just pull it up towards us. We want to continue to do that. Pull it up towards us. You don't want to push it down towards the table. So go in that space where you made a loop along your circle, and you're going to make standing loops and pull it up towards you. It's really important that you're consistent with the way that you pull your yarn. So I'm continually going down into the space and then pulling the working yarn up through the space towards me. If you push it down towards the table, you will mix your knit and purl stitches. Your knit stitches are on the front and your purl stitches are on the back. So if you mistakenly push your yarn down towards the table, you will see a mixture of knit and purl stitches, which is not necessarily what we want for this project. So now I have all of my loops. You want to give them a count to make sure you have close to the amount of loops that you started with in your chain, meaning if you had 15 loops on your chain, you have 15 loops here. I'm going to fold this in half, and then I'm going to continue to make loops. Take your tail and push it down out the way. So you have your working yarn, and now that we have standing loops, we're just going to pull that working yarn up through the loops, always towards you. So we're going to continue this process for 10 to 12 rows, depending on how big you make your loops, how much do you want to be able to fold your hat, how big do you want it, like slouchy, etc. All of those things are going to depend on what aesthetic you're trying to get with this project. So I say take your time, kind of play with it, do 10 rows, kind of pop it on your head, see if you like it, do a couple more rows or not. So this project, I decided to keep the amount of loops I have the same. I made 15 loops, and I kept 15 loops all the way to the end. When I got to the end, I felt like the top of my hat was a little bulky in hindsight. So I think if I was to do this again, I would combine some loops to kind of give it a little bit more shape. But this is a very simple way to do this without having to take any extra steps. So we're going to continue just making loops using our working yarn. This is a quick and easy, beginner-friendly project where you only need one skein of yarn, so you can make this hat for less than $5. So I'm going to continue to work through this. I'm going to turn on some music so that you guys can see me doing this. This process is sped up, but this project really only takes me about 30 to 40 minutes to do. So don't feel like this should take you hours upon hours because my hand movements are sped up, but they're not that sped up. They're like 2 times speed. So I'm going to turn some music on and we'll come back. So here I have finished some rows already. So now we're going to keep going until we get to the height that we want to reach. Alright, this is how tall I want my hat to be, so that is my last loop. I'm going to pull about 10 inches of yarn or so, maybe a little bit more, and then I'm going to cut it away from the working yarn. This is how much yarn I had left for my ball. And this hat was pretty big, so I definitely can be smaller. So here we are. I'm going to take my end and I'm going to insert it into the loops, going from the inside to the outside. Inside to the outside. I personally like to call this the drawstring method. I don't know if there's an official like knitting, crochet, etc. name for it, but it reminds me of a drawstring, so that's what I like to say. So you're going to go inside towards the outside, and then you're just going to pull it close until it looks like this. So you see it's starting to round as I pull all of the yarn through all of the loops, and you'll see how there's like some bulk there. This is where I was considering like maybe if I would have took out some of the rows, it would have looked a little bit better. But now we're going to loop it around some of the extra loops here, and then we're going to push it to the inside to secure it. So I'm going to go through some of those loops where I inserted the yarn, and I'm going to make a couple knots. Make sure that this is secure because you don't want this stitch breaking and then your hat starting to like come apart. So once you get that secured in there, you've tied a couple knots, you're just going to cut the end maybe like 2 or so inches from the knot, and you're just going to kind of tuck it into the fullness so that it is clean. So here is my hat. But on the bottom edge of my hat, you have your tail that you originally started with. So we're going to tuck that in. I went a little bit off frame, but I was also recording this on my phone. So you can see here how I'm like tucking that in inside some of the fullness. I did make a knot with it just to make sure that it is secure in there. And then I'm tucking the end into the yarn, and then I'm going to cut the excess just like that. And I decided that I really like this hat and I do want to wear one this winter. So I'm going to put a bonnet in it because I don't want it to dry out my hair or be rough or abrasive against my hair. So this is what I'm doing. I got this bonnet from the store and I'm literally just whip stitching it into the yarn. And this was pretty easy. If you've never hand sewn before, you just need a needle and thread with a knot on the end, and you want to go in the bonnet into the yarn and then back up into the yarn and back into the bonnet and go back and forth until you get to the end. I will say you need to stretch this a little bit more than what I did because I found that it was a little snug once I put it back on. So I would stretch the bonnet a little bit, maybe put some pins in it so that it's kind of stretched and that the yarn is stretched so it's not tight on your head. Thank y'all so much for watching my tutorial. Hopefully you are able to finish your chunky knit hat. If so, please tag me on Instagram, the Aya Emporium, or tag me on TikTok, Sewing with Tay. It's the same as my YouTube channel. I appreciate y'all for watching and stay tuned for the next project.